Back with us now, the estimable and great writer. She's Hill columnist Kristin Tate. Okay, Kristin, it's great to have you back on. Republican Senators Chuck Grassley, Ron Johnson, saying the Secret Service is wrongfully censoring 260 or so pages of Hunter Biden's travels on Air Force Two for overseas business deals while his father was vice president. The senators say the FOIA Act doesn't cover this here. So is the Secret Service trying to basically protect itself? Because Hunter Biden is known to have made 411 Secret Service protected trips, domestic and international, to 29 countries, including China and Russia.
Yeah, well, that's certainly what it seems like. I mean, thanks to reporting by the New York Post, we know that the Chinese were paying Hunter Biden for government access and potentially paying millions to Joe Biden through his son. But we really don't know the full scope of Hunter Biden's overseas business dealings, Liz, because his travel records during these years have been inappropriately redacted or withheld by the Secret Service. And what's most amazing to me about this story is the media's refusal to cover it. I mean, if you Google this story or even just Google about the letter that Grassley and Johnson sent today, you find almost no stories about it. Even in big outlets like CNN, the Washington Post, and the New York Times, they are just completely pretending like it doesn't exist. But this is a big story, and they need to be reporting on it. I mean, think about the facts that we do know. We know that a Chinese-linked energy firm promised Hunter Biden $30 million in exchange for introductions in Washington, D.C. What were these Chinese executives promised? Who were they introduced to? And did Joe Biden help with those introductions? We need to know the answers to that. And at the same time that all of this was going on, there's evidence that Hunter and Joe were sharing bank accounts. Maybe Hunter was paying some of Biden, his father's bills. So the American people deserve answers.
Yeah, 10% for the big guy, right? That's according to Tony Bobulinski's text messages. I mean, you know, so there's that. I mean, the White House is under fire from the Republican senators there. The White House, the president with his first presser in nearly a year, they're trying to reset Biden's messaging, right? The list is growing of the White House's misleading statements. They think Biden's bad poll numbers that is not connected to his bad messaging on the economy, inflation, empty store shelves. You know, so there's Hunter Biden, and there's also this. And there's so much more problematic stuff and crises going on with the White House. Your take on this?
Yeah, I mean, I find it sort of funny that Joe Biden's team is trying to blame his failing poll numbers on messaging. Clearly, the problem's not messaging, it's poor policy. I mean, Joe Biden has basically allowed radical left-wingers in his party to hijack his White House. I mean, the Democratic Party today, that's led by Joe Biden, stands for defunding the police, draconian COVID lockdowns, blowing out the federal spending, making kids wear masks in school for 8+ hours a day. I mean, this is really radical stuff, and it might resonate with some naive college kids and voters in deep blue pockets of the country. But a lot of former blue dog Democrats and moderate voters look at this agenda and feel completely alienated by it. So the White House has a real problem on its hand. It has pushed away what used to be the core of its voting base, and they're going to have a hard time getting those people to the polls.
Stay on this. You know, you made an important point about the media not covering these certain crises. Media Research Center, you know, saying they're not covering Afghanistan, the border, or Hunter Biden. They spent just 7 hours in August 21 when Biden botched the Afghan exit and stranded thousands of Americans and allies, and 13 troops were killed. Then they dropped it to 16 minutes in October on Afghanistan. The 6 months through December of last year, they only spent, I think, 0 time on the border crisis, you know, and it was like minimal coverage of that. They spent less than an hour and a half total in the 6 months on the border. And then when it comes to Hunter Biden, they just spent 5 minutes on Hunter Biden in all of 2021. So that's according to the Media Research Center covering CBS, ABC, and NBC.
It's a total joke. I mean, the media has become so flagrant in its bias that it's lost all credibility. But I do think because it's become so flagrant in its bias, the mainstream media is not really changing anyone's minds anymore. They're just playing to their far left-wing base. And the evidence for that is that as the administration is kind of protected by the media, and the media is working overtime to do that, Biden's poll numbers are still dropping. And that's because people can see firsthand the failures of this administration. They go to the grocery store and they pay way more for their food. They go to fill up their cars with gas and it's much more expensive. They send their kids to school and they see race essentialism being completely infused in the curriculum. They drive through the streets of any major U.S. city and see homeless people and drug addicts lining the streets. Crime is through the roof. I mean, just every aspect of American life is worse now than it was a year ago, and Americans can see it. So the media can work all they want over time trying to cover for Joe Biden, but the American people aren't stupid. Okay. They see what's going on.
Kristin Tate, thanks for joining us. It's great to have you on. Come back soon.
Thank you, Liz.
Still to come, new court